Well, Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley has called for an older Democrat senator to face retirement. She's written an op-ed for Fox News Digital where she backs up her campaign promise that politicians over the age of 75 years old need to take a competency test. Nikki Haley made this promise when she announced her run for the presidency.
In the America I see, the permanent politician will finally retire. We'll have term limits for Congress. And mandatory mental competency tests for politicians over 75 years old.
Now, this has been in the background for a while now, as President Joe Biden's own age has been a big factor into why many people may be deterred from voting for him at the 2024 election. At 80 years old, he is the oldest sitting president in US history. If he were to win at the 2024 election, he would finish his second term at 86 years old. Another Democrat, California Senator Diane Feinstein, is still working at 89 years old. Nikki Haley called Senator Feinstein a trailblazer, but said that she is a prime example of why politicians over 75 need to take a test. Ms. Haley wrote, "She's a trailblazer who's made an indelible mark in public service, but it's been obvious for quite some time that she's in significant mental and physical decline. She's missed months of votes and clearly can no longer do her job. I agree with several congressional Democrats who say Feinstein should resign immediately and let someone else who is able to do the job take over. At 89 years old, she is a prime example of why we need mental competency tests for politicians." Nikki Haley dismissed any suggestion that saying Senator Feinstein should resign is sexist, given, as she points out, the best case of this would be the sitting president. The former South Carolina governor believes Biden's actual age isn't the problem. But millions of Americans watch President Biden and believe he exhibits cognitive decline. He rarely takes press questions. He spends most weekends at his vacation home in Delaware. Sadly, he often seems disoriented and confused. Yet the public can't know for sure without a cognitive test, which Biden has either not taken or declines to publish as part of his medical records. Before then taking a swipe at Joe Biden's VP Kamala Harris, calling her one of the most incompetent elected officials in the country. "I wish Joe Biden the best of health, but it's only sensible to consider the reality of an already slipping president serving through his mid-80s. If Biden is re-elected, Harris would have the highest likelihood of becoming president in the middle of a term of any vice president ever. The question before voters in 2024 is, to an unprecedented degree, whether they want Kamala Harris to be president, not vice president." It's important to note that Nikki Haley copped her own criticism about her age this year when former CNN anchor Don Lemon made serious headlines after he said the presidential candidate wasn't in her prime.
This whole talk about age makes me uncomfortable. I think it's the wrong road to go down. She says people, politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
It depends. I mean, it's just like prime. If you look it up, if you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s. I don't necessarily.
40s. Oh, I got another.
Nikki Haley concluded her op-ed proposing for both Senator Feinstein and Joe Biden to sit for the Montreal Cognitive Assessment Test, which would detect cognitive decline. But the main thing is that they actually publish the results to ensure transparency for the American people. She concludes, "Voters deserve to know whether those who are making major decisions about war and peace, taxation and budgets, schools and safety can pass a very basic mental exam." Nikki Haley's calls come just less than a week after Congressman Ronnie Jackson wrote his latest letter to President Biden asking him to sit a cognitive test. He wrote the letter after Joe Biden announced he was seeking a second term in office, and also after an NBC News poll revealed that 70% of Americans didn't want him running again, 34% describing his age as a major factor as to why. Congressman Jackson is also the former White House physician to George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump. Since June 2021, he has publicly been advocating for Joe Biden to sit the exam, the same way Trump had to in 2018 when there were doubts surrounding his mental fitness. Ronnie Jackson's latest letter reads, "We call on you to either resign immediately and renounce your bid for re-election or submit to a clinically validated cognitive screening assessment and make those results available to the public. When you first announced your bid to run in the 2020 presidential election, questions and concerns were raised surrounding your cognitive abilities. Those concerns have only increased because your mental decline and forgetfulness have become more apparent since you were elected. Over the past 2 years, public appearances where you shuffle your feet, trip when you walk, slur your words, forget names, lose your train of thought, and appear momentarily confused have become more of a common occurrence.